In 1982, one of the world's most successful investors lost everything. He publicly predicted an economic depression that never came. He was confident, certain, convinced he was right. He was completely wrong. His clients left, his reputation was destroyed. At 43 years old, he was borrowing money from his father just to pay bills. That failure taught him more than decades of success ever could. And what he learned from that catastrophic mistake might save you from making the same errors after 40. Because here's the truth nobody wants to hear: you have less time than you used to. You have more to lose. And the financial strategies that work for someone at 25 will absolutely destroy you at 45. If you're over 40 and not where you want to be financially, the single most important mindset shift you need isn't what you think. It's not about finding better investments. It's not about taking bigger risks. It's about something completely different. Stop trying to be brilliant and start trying to avoid being stupid. That sounds like the same thing. It's not. And understanding this difference might be the most valuable financial insight you ever receive. Let me show you why. The mathematics of time changes everything after 40. Here's what most people fail to calculate. Losing 50% of your portfolio at 25 is painful. Losing 50% at 50 is catastrophic, not because you're less capable, but because of pure arithmetic. Getting back to even after a 50% loss doesn't require a 50% gain. You need a 100% return just to break even. Your money has to double just to return to where you started. At 25, you have 40 years for that to happen. 40 years of compounding, 40 years of earning, 40 years of new opportunities. At 50, you have maybe 15 working years left. The math doesn't lie. And the math doesn't care about your feelings, your intentions, or your optimism. After 40, arithmetic becomes either your best friend or your worst enemy. Success after 40 turns out to be less about doing brilliant things and more about avoiding catastrophic things. The people who build lasting wealth aren't necessarily smarter than everyone else. They've simply made fewer devastating mistakes along the way. So how do you avoid devastating mistakes? You use a mental tool that has made more fortunes than almost any investment strategy ever created. It's called inversion. The concept comes from a mathematician named Jacobi, who solved difficult problems by working backward. His advice was simple: invert, always invert. Instead of asking, how do I get rich after 40, ask, how do I guarantee I stay poor forever? Instead of asking, what should I do, ask, what should I absolutely avoid? Think of it this way: all I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. That sounds like a joke. It's not. It's one of the most practical approaches to wealth you'll ever learn. So let's invert the question. Let me show you exactly how to guarantee financial failure after 40. Once we know that, we'll know precisely what to avoid. First way to guarantee failure: use borrowed money to invest. There's an old saying, smart men go broke 3 ways: liquor, ladies, and leverage. The first 2 are just there because they start with the same letter. The real killer is borrowed money. 500 years of economic history shows us one pattern over and over. A string of wonderful numbers multiplied by 0 always equals 0. Consider what happened to long-term capital management in the 90s. This hedge fund had 2 Nobel Prize winners running it, Myron Scholes and Robert Merton. They had the most sophisticated mathematical models on the planet. The model said massive borrowed money was safe. The probability of catastrophic loss was essentially 0. Then Russia defaulted on its debt. Markets moved in ways the model said were impossible. In 4 months, long-term capital management lost everything. The Federal Reserve had to organize a bailout to prevent a complete financial meltdown. These weren't stupid people. They were literally the most brilliant financial minds on earth. But brilliance combined with borrowed money equals catastrophe. After 40, you cannot afford catastrophe. After 40, because there's no time to recover from 0. You might think you're being conservative, just a little margin, just a small loan, but a slight chance of catastrophe always exists when you owe money to others. Always. And one catastrophe is all it takes to destroy decades of work. Second way to guarantee failure: spend more than you earn. Once this pattern takes hold, you'll probably never escape it. That's not pessimism. That's statistical reality. Consider Mozart, the most famous composer who ever lived. His music will be played for centuries. He earned excellent money for his era, the equivalent of six figures in today's dollars, and he died completely broke, buried in an unmarked grave because his wife couldn't afford a funeral. Why? He always spent more than he earned. No matter how much money came in, he lived in expensive places, threw elaborate parties, gambled, borrowed constantly. If someone with once-in-a-century genius and substantial income couldn't escape the trap of spending more than earned, what makes anyone think they can? Here's what matters. Your income level has almost nothing to do with whether you build wealth. Someone earning $40,000 who saves $5,000 a year will end up wealthier than someone earning $200,000 who saves nothing. The arithmetic doesn't care about your job title or your status. Consumer debt compounds against you just as surely as good investments compound for you, except debt compounds every single month without fail, while investments have good years and bad years. Third way to guarantee failure: the unreliable. This surprises people. What does reliability have to do with money? Everything. The opportunities that build wealth flow through trust. Partnerships, investments, referrals, promotions. After 40, there's no time to keep rebuilding bridges you burned. Every broken promise cost you years of compound trust you can't get back. Unreliable people crater immediately, regardless of their other talents or skills. Fourth way to guarantee failure: stop learning. Every wise person who builds lasting wealth reads constantly. Every single one, no exceptions. People who rise in life are not always the smartest, sometimes not even the most diligent, but they are learning machines. They go to bed every night a little wiser than they were when they got up. Without continuous learning, you fall behind slowly at first, then suddenly all at once. You wake up one day and realize younger people with half your experience are getting the opportunities you wanted. Not because they're smarter, because they never stopped learning. The world changes. Industries transform. Skills become obsolete. What made you successful at 30 might be worthless at 50. Fifth way to guarantee failure: let emotions control your decisions. Plenty of intelligent people are terrible with money because they have terrible emotional control. Building wealth requires patience, discipline, and the ability to take losses without panicking. Intelligence without emotional control is worthless. Actually worse than worthless, because it's dangerous. Smart people who can't control their emotions find sophisticated ways to destroy themselves. That's the complete recipe for guaranteed failure: borrowed money, overspending, unreliability, refusing to learn, and emotional decisions. Now you know exactly what to avoid, but knowing what to avoid isn't enough. Because 3 psychological traps destroy more wealth after 40 than any market crash ever could. Trap 1: comfort. After years of work, you built something: a career, a lifestyle, a routine, and your brain desperately wants to protect it. Psychologists call this loss aversion. After 40, you have more to lose, which means your brain screams constantly: don't risk it, don't change, protect what you have. The problem? Protection often looks exactly like stagnation. You stay in a job going nowhere because it feels safe. You keep money earning nothing because you can't handle any volatility. You avoid opportunities because they might not work out. Comfort becomes a cage, and you build the bars yourself, one safe decision at a time. Trap 2: denial. If you had to name one factor that dominates bad financial decisions, it would be denial. When the truth becomes unpleasant enough, people's minds play tricks on them. They convince themselves it isn't really happening. You know your industry is changing, but you tell yourself it'll be fine. You know you're not saving enough, but you promise yourself you'll start next year. You know your skills are becoming obsolete, but you assume experience will carry you. Denial feels comfortable. Reality does not. So people choose denial automatically, unconsciously, reflexively. The fear that it's too late becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You stop trying because you think it's hopeless, and because you stop trying, it becomes hopeless. The rational approach is forcing yourself to confront unpleasant realities. It's uncomfortable, and it's supposed to be uncomfortable. That's only you know you're doing it right. Trap 3: self-pity. This is the most dangerous trap because self-pity feels completely justified. Life delivers terrible blows. Maybe you lost money in a divorce, a job loss came at the worst time, a health crisis drained your savings. A market crash hit right when you were close to retirement. Self-pity gets dangerously close to paranoia, and paranoia is one of the hardest mental states to reverse. Once you believe the world is against you, that you've been uniquely victimized, that your circumstances are worse than everyone else's, you stop looking for solutions. You stop taking responsibility. You become a passenger in your own life, waiting for circumstances to change instead of changing yourself. But here's the truth. You can train yourself out of self-pity. And when you do, you gain a massive advantage because most people cannot escape it. Every setback is an opportunity to learn something. Every terrible blow is a chance to respond constructively. This isn't motivational talk, this is strategic reality. The people who build wealth after 40 are not the ones with the fewest setbacks. They're the ones who refuse to let setbacks define their future. Now let's talk about the most important concept for building wealth after 40. Every person has a circle of competence. Inside your circle are things you truly understand, not things you've read about or heard about, things you deeply, fundamentally understand from direct experience. Outside your circle is everything else, the vast universe of things you don't really know. Knowing the edge of your own competence is extremely hard, because your mind naturally tries to make you think you're smarter than you actually are. No matter how intelligent you are, you have to figure out what your real abilities are. Playing games where other people have the skills and you don't means you're going to lose. That's as close to certain as any prediction can be. Here's a real example. A surgeon in the late 90s had accumulated over $2 million by age 53. Brilliant doctor. Excellent income, disciplined saver. He was on track to retire very comfortably. Then the tech boom hit. He started trading stocks. He thought, I'm smart, I understand complex systems, I can figure this out. He started small, made some money, got confident, increased his positions, made more money, got very confident. Then he moved most of his retirement savings into tech stocks, companies he barely understood, names he'd only heard about months earlier. When the bubble burst, he lost over $600,000 in 14 months. Panicked and sold everything at the bottom, locking in massive losses. He wasn't stupid. He was outside his circle of competence. And interest rate stocks in a was too late. After 40, your circle of competence becomes your biggest asset. Stay inside it ruthlessly. Every financial disaster in later life comes from someone stepping outside their circle and convincing themselves they know what they're doing. But here's the encouraging part. Your circle isn't fixed forever. You can expand it slowly and methodically through relentless learning. Spend each day trying to be a little wiser than you were when you woke up. Day by day, inch by inch. At the end of the day, if you live long enough, you will get what you deserve. The single most important trait for building wealth after 40 isn't intelligence, it's rationality. And they're absolutely not the same thing. Very smart people do very dumb things constantly. Smart people can rationalize anything. They convince themselves their situation is different, that the rules don't apply to them, that they found an angle nobody else sees. Someone with a very high IQ can make more catastrophic mistakes than someone much less intelligent. Think about that for a moment. Raw intelligence can actually become a liability. The highly intelligent person thinks they're even smarter than they are. They take risks that only make sense if they're as brilliant as they believe. Meanwhile, the less intelligent person knows their limits, stays firmly within those limits, makes fewer catastrophic mistakes. Long-term financial advantage comes from trying to be consistently not stupid instead of trying to be very intelligent. Most people try to be smart to find the clever angle to outsmart the market. The better approach? Simply try not to be idiotic. But that turns out to be much harder than it sounds. What does rationality mean in practice? Making decisions based on evidence instead of emotion. Changing your mind when facts change. Refusing to believe things just because you want them to be true. Here's a brutal standard to apply. You're not entitled to have an opinion on a subject unless you can state the arguments against your position better than the people who oppose it. Almost nobody does this. Most people have strong opinions about investments, business strategies, career decisions, and they'd never seriously considered the opposing view. Never stress tested their own thinking. Never asked, what if I'm wrong? The rational person constantly asks that question. They're not paralyzed by doubt. They're protected by it. Making fewer catastrophic errors because they've already imagined how catastrophe could happen. Here's something almost no one does, but everyone should. I'm going to give you homework right now. Tonight, before you go to bed, open a document. Write down your 3 biggest financial mistakes. For each one, write 3 specific things. What you did, why you did it, what you'll do differently next time. Then set a monthly reminder to review this document. Add new mistakes as they happen. Study your own patterns. Most people do the exact opposite. They forget mistakes as fast as possible. Rationalize them away. Blame external circumstances. Convince themselves it wasn't really their fault. Then make identical mistakes again and again. Reviewing your past failures makes you far less likely to repeat them. Do this tonight. This single practice can save you more money than any investment strategy you'll ever learn. Now let's talk about the actual system for building wealth after 40. It has 3 parts, and most people fail at all 3. Part 1. When markets crash and everyone panics, you do nothing. You hold your positions, you don't sell, you stay calm while others lose their minds. Part 2. When everyone is buying and prices are rising and excitement is everywhere, you wait, you watch, you save, you prepare, you build your cash position. Part 3. When there's blood in the streets and nobody wants to buy anything and fear dominates everything, you strike. You go all in with everything you've prepared. You buy aggressively when everyone else is selling in panic. Most people do the exact opposite of this system. They sell in panic at the bottom. They buy in excitement at the top. They nibble cautiously when they should be aggressive. This is precisely why they lose. Building wealth requires a strange combination of patience and aggression. You need real patience, not fake patience where you're constantly looking for action and feeling restless. Real patience where you genuinely accept that most of the time, the best move is no move at all. The big money is not in the buying and selling. The big money is in the waiting, in the discipline to do nothing when nothing is the right move. And then you need the aggression to act decisively when the right moment finally comes, to put serious money behind your conviction. Not nibble at the edges with tiny positions, full commitment when the opportunity is real. Most people cannot combine these 2 opposing qualities. They're either always passive or always aggressive. The right approach looks completely insane to most observers. Long periods of apparent inactivity followed by sudden massive action. Here's something most people don't understand until it's far too late. The future still holds opportunities. It always has. It always will. The last great opportunity that the world will ever see has not already passed. More opportunities are coming. Being 40 today means you might have 40 or 50 years left. Being 50 means 30 or 40 years remaining. Being 60 means 20 or 30 years ahead. People have built significant fortunes in less time than that. The question isn't whether opportunities will come. They absolutely will. The question is whether you'll be ready when they arrive. Ready means having money available to deploy, having eliminated debt that constrains you, having expanded your knowledge and skills, having built your capacity for rational decisions under pressure. You build this readiness during the long, quiet periods when nothing is happening, so that when opportunity finally arrives, you can act immediately and decisively. Let me tell you about the hardest milestone in wealth building. The first $100,000 is absolutely brutal, but you have to reach it. Everything becomes easier after that point. Why? Compounding mathematics. At small amounts, compound growth is essentially invisible. $10,000 growing at 10% makes you 1,000. Nice, but not life-changing. 100,000 at 10% makes you 10,000 a year. A million at 10% makes you 100,000 a year. Same percentage rate, radically different absolute numbers. The first 100,000 is where you do most of the heavy lifting yourself. After that, your money starts doing more and more of the work for you. People who start late need to be even more aggressive about reaching this critical milestone. Not aggressive with risk-taking, aggressive with savings rate, aggressive with cutting unnecessary expenses, aggressive with growing income. You only have to get rich once. You're not trying to get rich multiple times. You're trying to reach the point where compounding takes over. Then protect that compounding at absolutely all costs. Here's the hardest truth you'll hear. If you're struggling financially after 40, the problem is probably not external. It's not the economy, not your industry, not bad luck. not unfair circumstances. It's you. Specifically, it's patterns of thinking and behavior you've repeated so many times they've become completely invisible to you. Maybe you consistently overestimate your own knowledge, consistently underestimate risks, consistently make important decisions based on emotion, consistently spend more than you should, consistently avoid uncomfortable truths. Whatever your specific pattern is, it's consistent, it repeats, and until you see it clearly, you'll keep repeating it forever. The encouraging news, these aren't permanent personality traits you're born with. They're habits you've developed. And habits can change, but only once you see them. And most people never see their own patterns because they're too busy protecting their self-image and ego. Here's a simple calculation to leave you with. At 45, saving $2,000 a month for 20 years at 7% annual return gives you over $1 million at 65. At 50, the same monthly savings for 15 years gives you over $600,000. At 55, 10 years of consistent saving gives you over $300,000. Even starting late still works. 600,000 isn't 1 million, but 600,000 isn't zero either. 300,000 isn't zero. The person who says it's too late and does nothing ends up with exactly nothing. The person who says it's late but I'll start anyway ends up with something substantial. That something might mean the difference between dignity and desperation in your final decades. You have a choice to make right now. Continue doing exactly what you've been doing and get exactly the same results you've been getting. Or change, not by becoming brilliant, not by finding secret strategies. Change by becoming less stupid. Consistently, relentlessly, day after day. Avoid borrowed money for investments, spend less than you earn, be reliable in everything you do, learn continuously and never stop. Control your emotions ruthlessly, stay firmly inside your circle of competence, wait patiently for real opportunities. Act decisively when the right moment finally comes. There's no magic here, no secrets, no shortcuts, just arithmetic, discipline, and time. Go to bed tonight a little wiser than you were this morning. Do the same thing tomorrow and the day after that, step by step, day by day, inch by inch, you get ahead. Slug it out one small piece at a time. You just learned what cost one brilliant surgeon over $600,000, what destroyed a hedge fund run by Nobel Prize winners, what left Mozart broke despite genius-level talent and excellent income. Tomorrow's video shows you exactly where to invest your first $100,000, the specific assets, the specific allocation, the specific strategy for your age. Subscribe right now or spend the next 20 years wondering what if. The window of opportunity is open, but only if you stop interrupting your own progress. Your move,